Hi, everybody. I just wanted to hop in quick before today's episode to remind you that we are doing a giveaway of 6 months of Realms Plus subscription. All you gotta do is subscribe and leave a comment. The more comments, the more chances you have to win. See our community tab for the full rules and conditions of the contest. And with that, let's get on with today's episode. No matter how close we get to the top of the mountain, it's always just a little further away, a little bit more work. Hello, everybody. My name is Minovate. And this is another episode of Shifted Reality, Season 2, Episode 29. You know, as I look at everything we've built, I can't believe we've gotten to Episode 29 already, when our first season was only 25 episodes and took us almost a year to do. This is really starting to progress, and we are really improving and getting along. Speaking of which, do you remember this gift that was given to us by Wasei in the last episode? A chocolate box full of goodies? Well, Real came by, and he was looking for something that was inside of here. Real was looking for some shulker shells, and, well, since Wasei gave me a full stack of them, I figured I could share about a half a stack or so, and I had the wood to create the chest to make them into full shulkers for him. And Real said he would give me 10 diamonds for it, and that felt like an even trade. Or maybe not, since they were free to me and I just gave them to him for 10 diamonds. That's pure profit on my part, selling off a gift that I got. Because of course it occurred to me as I was checking my store profits, there already is a shop in the shopping district that sells shulker shells. And it is run by Wasei, who's the one who gifted me the shulker shells. And Wasei sells them 2 diamonds for 2 shulker shells, which would be 32 diamonds, and I sell them for 10. Oops. So, did I do Wasei a disservice? I mean, turning his grateful gift into profit for me and a lack of profit for him in the shopping district? Leave a comment down below to let me know what you think. And I'm sure he will be along shortly to leave his own comment because he comments frequently on these videos. But now I think what we're going to get in today is to finish off what we started on this level, which is this retaining wall that had some a little bit of quirks to it just to fit in our new nether portal temple. But we need to put in some additional housing for some farmers, and well, I guess we're gonna move these maps yet again and probably put something up decorative on this retaining wall so it's not such a boring cobblestone slate. You're free, cow, because I am taking out your home. I commented before I was probably going to remove this episode, and definitely it's now gone just because the flow is a little bit easier to have it come this way. And while I want villagers to be able to roam a little bit, I decided I need to kind of compartmentalize some areas just to make it a little bit less likely that they wander too far from their workstations. Because while I've had some farmer villagers come in here, work these stations, and pick the wheat, it's quite obvious that they ended up either wandering off and dying, disappearing, going to the cornfields, or who knows where. So we just need to make sure that the farmers that will be working this area will stay in this area. So that is going to be the purpose of this little decorative garden fence. And overall, I think it's going to actually enhance the village feel a little bit. And we're putting the fence along the top of the village retaining wall, just because I'm starting to get tired of villagers kind of coming out here and getting stuck. So no longer will they be able to find their way to these spots. And hopefully that will allow them to continue moving about the village and adding the life and the vibrancy that they are supposed to be adding, and not just being dumb villagers. But that remains to be seen. Now that I've encased this area into a little gated community within our overall village design, I laid out a bit of a path and started to think about what I have available for building up a villager houses. And since I have 5 farmer workstations in this area, that's what I focus on, is how do I make 5 villager bedroom house things. And at the most basic vanilla villager house, that just leaves us some very tight space to fit in that many. But I think we can pull it off. I need to move our maps again. These will need to go to a more permanent solution. I don't know if we're getting that to this episode, but look forward to that in a coming one, to be sure. Okay, so I can't just do a completely vanilla build. I needed to give a little bit of my own flair here. And recently my son was asking me about what I thought about using fences and windows. And I don't really know. I've seen other people do it. I haven't really considered it for myself. And I have to say, in this particular case, I think I would like it a bit more if that stayed straight instead of creating the little indent for the wall there. But I don't think this is quite for me as to making a window. But a fence gate, on the other hand, that I can actually see, because it closes in around it, allowing it to still have a straight wall feel. And you pop that open, not only do you have a window, you also have a nice little shutter effect. And it's a lot more understated than some of the larger shutter effects that you can do with trapdoors. So I'm actually really liking that, and that is definitely staying. Every time I try to approach a new building, I try and approach it from scratch, but I also keep in mind the things that have come before me. And whilst I'm making on something that starts off as a very simple concept, 5 vanilla 5x5 houses just in a row next to each other, I start and whisper and move a bit beyond the basics that I start with. And that brings me back to our last row house. I want to try and tie it in with that, but also make it new and unique. And that's why I turned to the brick slabs again for the roof, and I'll probably use the dark oak as well. But you don't want it to be exactly the same either. So in this case, I wanted to do something with a little bit of an outcropping for each of the individual houses to kind of help define them a bit more. And my first instinct was to use upside down stairs as I did before. But then I thought, why don't we turn to the wall block, because that gives the nice vertical slab but doesn't extend out as far as the stairs, so you get a little bit of that overhang as well. And that will offset the overhang above the doors, which can look a little bit too large considering the block placements and the block overall sizes from each other. But having that little bit of an indent gives the texture and sense of more dimensions than just the cubic meter that you tend to work with Minecraft. And that gives it a more of a life and a little bit closer to a realism look without necessarily needing to over the top confuse the palette with a lot of different textures. Now what that gives me, however, is the overlap of the blocks of the stairs that are higher up than the half slabs that are starting the roof line. And so I'm going to want to maintain that in some fashion. That's going to need to be an element, a key piece to the overall design of the roof as I continue to create it. Now here we're at a point that we absolutely have no choice but to mix it up with a different colored block. And that's because even with the different levels of indent and height, ultimately the mud bricks are blending together into a singular mass that's not defining itself outside of what we've already put up there. So what we need from here is to create something that will allow the edges to shine through in a more unique fashion. And I think I have an idea of exactly what we need. We can see here now that kind of what we're going with, and I went ahead and expanded a little bit on this just to capture the feel of the multiple sections. And using the wax copper trapdoors really gives a slight tinge of a difference. It's not too bright or not too standoffish from the brown of the mud bricks, but it's enough to give it a definition that draws your eyes to the different steps. And that's why I think it's working at this point. Now we need to continue on. I'm going to change direction and give more of a front facing here, at least on the middle three, and then I'll decide if I want to make a change up on the last two on either side. You know, I started this with every intention of going with a dark roof. I was going to bring in some dark oak, and the inclusion of using the white diorite or polished diorite, as the case might be, was kind of spontaneous and not really intended. But I don't know, I suddenly had a inspiration as I went back to the storage area to gather my supplies for the roof, and the white just felt more right. So I grabbed it and started going with it, and it works. It really does. I'm keeping it. And now that we have our little farmer row house in, we can actually bring in our farmers. But that won't quite be the last thing we do, because we still have this retaining wall here that is a bit of an ugly gap. The one where the row house was kind of filled itself in, and we don't need to worry too much about that, but we definitely need to worry about this area right here and decide what we're going to do with it. Because I do not want to keep a big old ugly cobblestone wall right here. And you know what? It just occurred to me, we've been designing this entire new row house with vibrant visuals on the entire time, and it's kind of our first time doing that. So let's turn vibrant visuals off and see if we still like the design. And I think this is a good time to remind you that we are giving away 6 months of Realms Plus subscription. All you gotta do to be entered is subscribe and comment below. So if you have not yet commented on this video, now's a good time. Let me know if you think it looks better with or without the vibrant visuals. Overall, I like the build, and it is working both ways for me. So I am not disappointed with what we have come up with today. But we are still going to need to bring in some villagers. And for that, let's harvest some wheat to trade with them and lock in the trades that we want. And let's get some villagers up here. You know, I get that happy gas are not meant to be a particularly fast mode of travel, but oh my goodness, they are painfully slow. Especially when you want to use them for villager relocation, which is literally their best use. I actually would say that it's even better use than using them for building and temporary platforms while building in mega structures. But we'll see how that goes over time. Come on, my guy, don't be shy. I'm just going to carry you and take you back to live forever in my village. You'll love it. Don't worry, I'll bring you a new buddy to play with. There we go. Look how happy they are. They got their beds, they're dreaming. And then they will wake up to fresh mornings of work and happy days. Off they go. See, they're already happy working away at their new farm. Now we just need 3 more. Hold, please. Hi everyone, Editor Minovate here, and sorry for the abrupt change in topics. We just got caught up on our footage and realized that we lost a section that kind of explained what the plan was right here. And so I apologize, but we're going to jump right into where we're at with that. I really wish there was some sort of block that would stand out a bit more that went right across the middle of a bar. I mean, we got a few. We have chains, end rods, and lightning rods. But none of those will really fit in. I mean, the chains was the closest in color, but it just doesn't stand out enough. So that is definitely a gap we have in the arsenal of building tools. And well, since that doesn't work, I do have a second idea with some slabs. So let's see how this comes out. Oh yeah, and I also put some fences up along this entire upper area, mainly because I don't have it fully mob proofed this way, so mobs can spawn and wander this way towards our farmers, and I wanted to minimize them trying to eat their brains, so we kind of put up a little fence to guard and prevent that from happening. But let's see how this looks. I completely did that second one wrong. Okay, let me go fix that. You know, this is working out better than I thought it would, but it leaves something lacking at the bottom, and I have a little bit of it. You know, I still think I have some villagers down there that have yet to take on the roles and jobs of the workstations closest to them. But, you know, you work with what you got. I moved a couple villagers into here and set up a kind of an impromptu little workstation. I, I really just didn't want to take the happy gas all the way over to the iron farm and such to bring in specific ones pre-trained and locked onto the roles, but I give them a pair of smokers. Maybe eventually they will change their jobs and accept their position as meat sellers, but you know, we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, I also put up their little workbenches with this little hopper and chest lineup, and I don't know if it will work or not, but I know I've seen things where people suggest, you know, when they trade their bread, that maybe if they come over here and try and trade with these guys, when they throw the bread will end up landing inside the chest. So we'll see if we get anything out of that. Well, at least this guy has embraced the market stall life and is now selling meats. He will be offering up some tasty chickens, and in the meantime, some rabbit stew just to tide us over until we get him up in level a bit. This guy, however, as he's embraced the bed we've given him, still stubbornly holds on to his job as a weaponsmith, which I don't know how far away the closest grindstone is that is not in occupation, but it's pretty far, so hopefully he gives up that job soon. Oh hey look, you changed jobs, you're now a fisherman. Okay. But between our 5 farmers, we can collect about 2.5 to 2 3/4 stacks of golden carrots per day, which would be more than enough food for what we actually need to get. And if we ever get tired of golden carrots, we can buy chicken from this fine gentleman right here. And we'll see if they ever start giving us some free bread to kind of stock up for a rainy day in case we're ever out of emeralds. Who never knows? It could happen. Unlikely at this point in the game, but you know, it's nice to have options. And the more important thing is this will allow us to feed not only ourselves but our kids, and maybe we'll expand into the shopping district with some proper food options as well. There was that barbecue market opened up, but it was a little bit lacking. However, this is pretty much going to wrap up our episode for the day. We didn't quite get as far as I wanted to. I really want to get a permanent home for our map of our village. And of course, we just need to continue to work our way up the mountain until we get higher and higher and eventually reach the icy peaks. For now, if you've made it this far, please like and comment. There is the contest to earn 6-month subscription for Realms Plus, and every comment you make down below is an entry to win, so be sure to check in for all of our episodes and all of our shorts. Have a good one, everyone. Bye!